I talked a little bit about this last year, but it has really intensified over the past couple months because, I mean, let's be honest, they're trying real hard to get this Project 2025 thing across the finish line. They're so close. They've checked almost every box. But what I'm referring to in this conversation is people not having babies. It is everywhere. And the statistics are starting to support that women are not just having babies later, which was something that I applauded last year, that women were being more mindful about when they start to have children. They're having children in their 40s as opposed to teenage pregnancies, and that whole shift has happened. I'm very sensitive to this because I've talked a lot about not wanting children, but also having a massive family. And I also have a lot of friends who are having kids right now, friends who are going through IVF, friends who are freezing their eggs, friends who are having trouble having pregnancies, friends who have had kids, who have had pregnancy issues and postpartum. Also, I'm just sensitive to being a woman and the state of attack that women are constantly under with their bodies. So the statistics are starting to pour in, and it's a baby bust. And the conversation is, why are people not having more children? Why are Gen Z having children? Why are millennials having less children? And people, the higher ups are very concerned. Now, the higher ups are concerned because they need a workforce. Like that's just the bottom line. If people are not creating babies, then there are no workers to then go do the tasks for the elites. That's really what it all comes down to at the end of the day. But people are just being more mindful. Everything is expensive. I know we were promised cheaper eggs, but the eggs are still very expensive, and so is gas. It doesn't apply to me because I have an electric car, but for those of you who need that, I understand you're going through a lot right now. That's also, all of these things have all affected the birth rate. There's obviously a huge gender war going on. People are men and women are constantly at each other's throats. The dating scene is a disaster. Women have more access to financial stability, so they're able to make choices for themselves that don't involve having to have children or having to get married in order to have a roof over their head or food on the table. There's all these different factors. But there is a real statistical thing happening with people having children. And it's not just here in the US, but we'll talk about what's happening in the United States. From women ages 20 to 24, 85% are childless. That's up 75% over the last 10 years. Ages 25 to 29, 63% are childless. That's up 50% from 2014. And 30 to 34, 40% are childless, which is up 29% from 2014. You're seeing also like this statistic thrown around that 52% of women in their 20s and 30s are childless. And there was this suspected baby boom that was going to happen after the pandemic that didn't really stick. What we're dealing with right now is a culmination of a lot of different things. We're dealing with things being very expensive, it being very unsafe to have children. You're not safe in the hospitals. If you're a Black woman, it's incredibly unsafe to have children. You don't have paid maternity leave. It's very expensive to raise children. Childcare is expensive. Food is expensive. Gas is expensive. Eggs are expensive. They're not paying people more. There's not affordable housing. It actually makes more sense to rent a house than to buy a house right now. If you're in LA, if you don't inherit a house, good luck. Good fucking luck buying a house in Los Angeles if you don't have some rich parents or a rich auntie passing that on to you. It is a crazy, crazy time for young people to start building their lives. On top of that, you have this rise of incel and red pill hyper toxic masculinity happening. Women are shielding themselves from putting themselves in abusive and toxic situations with men. They're forming bonds with their friends and their family and building full lives outside of partners. Men are having a hard time communicating with women. There's an expectation of coming in with a certain level of money. There's all these, the world is falling apart. We're about to enter World War III. Why would you want to bring a child into these circumstances? I try to remove myself from this conversation in the way that none of these factors were ever going to affect me anyway. But I do think that when we talk about where society is shifting, in a conversation with people wanting to have children and the birth rate dropping across the planet, not just in the United States, it's because people feel unsafe. We're in a very strange time in human history where we have access to so much information and then at the same time, no information at all, because it's so hard to find the truth. I'm someone, as I mentioned earlier, who's trained in knowing where statistics are coming from and finding things that are true and making sure that what I'm speaking on has value and isn't something I just pulled off of a sticker on the internet. And even for me, I have to double and triple and quadruple check to make sure that these are things that have been researched and are real. People aren't doing that. So we're constantly being fed all this information. This is bad for you. This vaccine's bad for you. Milk is bad for you. Water's bad for you. If you work out too much, it's bad for you. If you sleep too much, it's bad for you. The world is ending. You can't afford a car. You can't afford a house. People are crawling the walls. Like it's a constant stimulation that people cannot find a quiet moment to even think about building a family or finding a partner or building a life in the way that our parents or grandparents were even considering. The economy has changed. People's sociological habits have changed. People's desires to build lives in different ways have changed. So to put this pressure on young people specifically, that they've all just gotten away from the ways of God or whatever this new propaganda is for pro-family, which is a whole situation, which we'll get to in a second, is really unfair. You're not considering all of the factors. Now, if we want to get into the propaganda side of it, obviously they just had the conservative parade party where women were talking about, start training your children to think about having kids, even if they can't afford them. There's a whole trad wife movement that women need to get back into the kitchen, into the house. They need free labor again. Women are, the family values and all that have gone away. There's this constant feeling that Handmaid's Tale is right around the corner. And maybe it is. By the way, don't look for me. I'm not in Canada. At the end of the day, I want people to focus on what it is that they truly want, because the amounts of information that people are being fed about this particular topic is so loaded with propaganda. It's so loaded with misinformation. It's so loaded with terror and rage that I don't even think people can really make solid decisions anymore without a complete feeling of doom. And if the people in charge really, which they don't, but if they really wanted to create a society where people were excited about families again and feeling comfortable creating these environments for children to come into, it wouldn't be a nightmare to have a child. It wouldn't cost thousands of dollars to have a child in the United States of America. My friend just had a baby. I'm not going to tell you what her hospital bill was, but she had insurance. Thousands of dollars to have a baby. A completely stable, married couple, planned child, thousands of dollars. She had to have an emergency C-section. Traumatizing, thousands of dollars. The maternity rates for especially for Black women in this country is insane. It is dangerous. If you get pregnant in certain states and you have a miscarriage, you could go to jail. What is the motivation to be pregnant in a state where you can go to jail for a miscarriage? But you want people to have children? Make it make sense. Forget how expensive it is. Forget how you're trying to roll back every single right that women have within marriages. They're trying to get rid of no-fault divorce. It's just a wild, wild time to be a woman, and it's a wild time to be somebody who wants to start a family. I am in some ways grateful that this isn't something that I have to worry about, but wow, like just seeing the people in my life who are starting families, who have children, the things and the conversations that I have with them about the things that they have to worry about, even the things that we have discovered people have been up to that we didn't even know were possible, like within the Epstein files. Like there was like things you worried about with having a child. And now it's like, oh, I didn't know also that like someone could kidnap them and eat them. That wasn't on the board for me when I was thinking about things I would be worried about with my kid. So it's an ongoing discussion. I know things are going to get wilder and wilder as this current regime progresses and as the push for Project 2025 goes on. I'm just constantly constantly shocked at the just the convoluted conversations, the empty conversations around people not having children, and just how much is included in the big picture of why it's happening. And considering that it's happening all over the world, it's more than just Americans have lost their way and God has left the country. Like, that's honestly like the weakest level of propaganda. If you want to know what's really going on, think a bit deeper, think a level deeper, because it's happening all over the world. And I think it's a reflection of the times that we're living in. And, I think family is important. I think people should keep having children. By the way, I feel like my quota is met. Like, I have 14 nieces and nephews and another one on the way. So I feel like my family has checked the box for like the repopulation. I feel like I'm in the clear. Like, I'll just count one. If you have one, like you've checked the box. Is that how it works? So I'll just take one of my nieces and nephews. I've got spares. 15 is a pretty solid number. The Taylor family has checked the box on repopulating the earth, keeping the quota going.